Hi there, fellow primates. I hope this video finds you well on this sunny Friday morning. It's time for Journal Club. And this week, let's imagine what life would be like if we were plethodontid salamanders. Plethodontid salamanders, what are those, Ronald? Well, plethodontids are apparently the largest family of salamanders. Most species live in the Americas, and they're quite cute, like this western slimy salamander and the Uwachita dusky salamander. They received their name from when you look in their mouths, you see a lot of teeth. But they have some more conspicuous, more interesting characters as well. And one of them is that many species have a very long projectile tongue that they can stick out explosively to catch their prey, just like some frogs can do. But there's another character which is truly bizarre because most adults of these salamanders are terrestrial. They have no lungs at all. So the plethodontids, they breathe through their moist skin and the lining of their mouth. So they're true mouth breathers in a sense. Now, their biology has been studied a lot, and one of the specific aspects that have received actually a lot of attention is their courtship and sexual behavior. For instance, herpetologist Stefan Arnold and his colleagues have watched really unhealthy amounts of salamander sex and tried to reduce all the slimy, sliding, grindy, moist behavior down to what could be the bare-bones script of a salamander porn movie. What do you mean? Well, they've looked at all the behaviors in plethodontids during courtship, and they classified them into 5 different parts. Approach between the mates, the head contact between them, tail straddling behavior, sperm deposition of the male, and positioning of the female so she can take up the sperm. So what kind of behaviors would you see if you would watch plethodontid behavior? Well, you would see such things as nasal, labial, chirus tapping. You would see jerky movements. You would see forelimb strokes, tail wagging, head sliding. You would see head swinging. You would see rubbing of the female head. You would see the male crawling underneath the skin of the female. You would see rubbing and tugging and hindfoot shuffling and hindfoot treading. You would see slapping, vent sliding, trunk undulation. You would see rocking laterally on hind limbs. And finally, invigoratingly, everything would finish with the male massaging the female with his tail. Now, a lot of these behaviors are about courtship glands. What do I mean by this? Well, I've prepared a very detailed schematic drawing of plethodontids, and the males have these 2 courtship glands on their body. One is called the mental gland, it's located on its chin, and one is called the caudal gland, and it's located on the back side at the base of the tail. And these glands, they swell up during the breeding season, and they're thought to produce and secrete pheromones that have an important role in courtship and sex behavior in the salamanders. Now, given the diversity of these courtship behaviors, what would that look like if you don't just read it off a table? Well, for that, I've prepared 2 extremely sophisticated educational props. Mr. Plethodontid on the left and Mrs. Plethodontid on the right. You can recognize her by her beautiful eyelashes and him by having the mental gland on his chin. Now, in my world of sock salamanders, the males and the females have the same kind of voice. So what would a sort of prototypical reduction of plethodontid mating look like? Allow me to demonstrate. And for this, I need to get up to give myself freedom to move. Okay, hello. Hello, do you want to mate with me? Oh, I think I might. I think we should start by approaching each other and sniffing each other out. Oh yeah. You smell quite good. Oh, what are you doing? I'm rubbing my mental gland on your back. Oh, I quite like that. Yeah, you like that? Yeah, I like that. Wait. I want to put my chin on your caudal glands. Oh, yeah, that is good. Yeah, oh, that is a nice caudal gland you have there. Yeah, wait, I've got something else for you. Oh, come here. Oh, I'm slapping your snout with my mental gland. Oh, that is mental. Oh, you dirty salamander. Oh, I will keep straddling your tail. Let's just go for a walk to find a place where we can deposit the sperm. Yeah. Oh, I think this is a good spot. Oh, I think I can see it move on. And let me get my cloaca over it. And then we can dissociate and go our own ways. I think that is pretty much what happens when plethodontids mate. Now, I've never seen plethodontid mating on TV. But I'm pretty sure that this is very accurate. Yeah, we think so too. Yeah. Now, these glands are clearly important because the female rubs her chin on the caudal gland of the male, he rubs his mental gland on her body and slaps her snout with it. And it is known that these glands produce pheromones. And one of the pheromones is called sodefrin precursor-like factor, or short SPF, and that is produced by different species of plethodontids in the mental glands. And it's been shown that it induces females to be more receptive to courtship and to be more quickly willing to take up the spermatophore deposited by the male. And the caudal gland secretions seem to induce the female to keep her chin in contact with it and follow the male during the tail straddle walk. But not much is known. It's been studied in a few species, especially the morphology and secretions of the caudal gland have been very poorly studied. So this is where the paper that I wanted to discuss this week comes in. It's been written by Madison Herbold and her colleagues from University of Tulsa in Oklahoma. Madison is a PhD student, and this paper I chose because in the February issue of the Journal of Molecular Evolution, this paper was awarded the Zucker-Kandel Prize. That is the prize for the best paper in the journal of 2021. It's an award named after Emile Zucker-Kandel. He was the founding editor of the journal. So congratulations, Madison and colleagues, on your cool paper. And the question they posed was simply, if you look at different species of plethodontids, what kind of pheromones do they produce, where do they produce them, and can we say anything about how they may have evolved? So they looked at 3 different types of plethodontids here shown in this image: the western slimy salamander, a fully terrestrial salamander, then the Ouachita dusky salamander with a biphasic life cycle, so the adults are terrestrial but their larvae are aquatic, and then a species, the Oklahoma salamander, that comes in 2 forms. Some populations have a biphasic life cycle with aquatic larvae but terrestrial adults, and some pedomorphic forms that are fully aquatic throughout their life cycle, where the aquatic adult retains larval characters, which is what pedomorphosis means. So they looked at the mental glands and the caudal glands of these salamanders. They used morphology, they used transcriptomics, they used quantitative PCR, they used phylogenetics and a few other methods to answer the question what pheromones are expressed in these glands, where and how did they evolve. And I will just highlight a few of their interesting findings. First, morphology. As you can see in this chart, if you look on the chin of the salamanders, you can see the mental gland. And in the fully terrestrial species, the western slimy salamander, they have by far the largest, relatively speaking to body size, the largest mental gland. And if you look at the right of that figure, the pedomorphic, fully aquatic populations of the Oklahoma salamander, they have pretty much lost all detectable morphological traces of the mental gland. So that is interesting. And if you look at the caudal glands, pretty much the same situation in all 3 species and in both aquatic and biphasic life cycles of the Oklahoma salamander. Then they homed in on a specific type of pheromone that had been shown to be present, the SPF that I mentioned before. And they found, as you can see in this phylogenetic tree, that SPF was present early on in salamander evolution, and then in plethodontids has diverged through gene duplication, in which there were various rounds where the genes were duplicated, forming in specific species multiple copies in the genome that fulfill perhaps specific roles. And they discovered that indeed that is true. As this figure shows, apologies, there's not a lot of resolution, it looks out of focus, that's not my fault, that was already in the PDF of the paper, but as you can see here on the y-axis you can see the different battery of pheromones they studied, and on the x-axis the different species, that there are differences between the species and there are differences between what genes are expressed in the mental gland and the caudal gland. So for instance, if you look at the SPFs, the pheromone family that has been evolving through gene duplication, the SPF alphas 1 and 2 are mostly expressed in the mental glands, and the SPF betas are expressed in the caudal glands. So there is a anatomical differentiation with respect to what pheromones have been recruited into which courtship gland, which is an interesting finding as well. And what they also found is that because the fully aquatic population of the Oklahoma salamander that has lost most morphological traces of the mental gland, although it does have some remnants, has a much lower expression of the mental gland pheromones as you'd expect. So looking at all this data and synthesizing it, Herbert et al. Has come to a conclusion that, and that's indicated in this phylogenetic tree, that already early on the SPF was a pheromone active in courtship in salamanders, and then in the plethodontidae the two glands evolved, the mental gland and the caudal gland, which are unique for plethodontids. And they recruited different batteries of pheromone genes that are expressed and that perhaps, as preliminary studies have shown, induce different aspects of courtship behavior. And then further on within the plethodontid evolutionary tree, another pheromone, plethodontid, what is it, receptivity factor, I think this is called, was recruited specifically within a clade not found elsewhere. So what you here have is a story of the differential recruitment in part of duplicated genes to different parts of the body in an integrated way. It's a bit like a key molecular engine that you find elsewhere as well, a Hox gene expression, for instance, in animal body plan, where gene duplication and the recruitment and of expression of Hox genes to different parts of the body helps pattern the overall body plan. If you look at venom evolution, where different toxin gene families have been recruited into different parts of venom systems, the same story. So this basically is a story about courtship glands in salamanders that answers to some of the things that we expect on the basis of what we already understand about molecular evolution. And finally, in the fully aquatic populations of the Oklahoma salamander, when the mental gland itself disappeared morphologically, then not unexpectedly the pheromones expressed by it become reduced in expression as well, to put it inelegantly. Now, interesting story. This study basically proposes more questions than answers because so little is known, especially about the role of the caudal gland. And even the mental gland has been studied also only in a few species, that this study really helps the researchers pick up new leads for future research. So congratulations to you all. It's a cool little paper, and I wish you good luck studying these salamanders in the future. If you are so cold-hearted not to like plethodontids, well, this journal club, which is a short one, was meant as a setup because next week I want to discuss pheromones in humans and also why terns are terrible indoor pets. So if you enjoyed this, like it underneath the video, subscribe to the channel, sign up for alerts. I hope you have a lovely weekend and I look forward to seeing you next week. Yeah, I want to see you next week too. Yeah, I want to see you too. Okay, bye-bye. Say goodbye. Bye. Bye. Oh.